Hello, my creator friends, and welcome to another episode of The Daily Prompt. My name is Jeff Ballo. I'm an independent producer on a journey to try to build an independent film studio that produces multiple films each year and helps writers understand how to write for production. I'm documenting the process in this vlog right here and trying to every single day, as I document the journey, give you some sort of value that's going to help you go out and either replicate the results that I have, or do it your own way, or just in some way enhance your creativity. So if you are not already subscribed, please be sure to click the subscribe button, click the little bell to make sure that you get notified when new episodes are released, because every single one of these is going to be jam-packed, I believe, with value for you. So let's get started. Now, today is a Monday. It's a public holiday in the U.S., but we're going forward anyway. As the start of a new week, I'm super excited about our progress. If you saw my sort of first progress report yesterday, I'm super enthusiastic about the way forward. And so what I thought we would do today is, so I have this sort of twin focus where I'm trying to juggle to give you the sort of business perspective, the producer's perspective, or to try to teach you detail of how to go about taking your ideas, turning them into stories, and building it. And so I want to cover all of that, and we will over the course of the series. But what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to start off by talking business and strategy. I'm going to talk about sort of what I think is the missing element in a lot of people's approach to screenwriting. I really believe that screenwriting today is very different to screenwriting 10 years ago. There's a totally different approach, totally different mindset, totally different set of opportunities. And if you're still working to an outmoded paradigm, you're going to be stuck in this endless loop of a cycle. So I believe that you need to, as a screenwriter, because what you're writing is designed to be turned into a film. It's not just designed to be bought by the end reader. Because it's designed to be turned into a film, I believe you need to understand the business side of it, the production side of it, the logistics of movie making side of it, and actually incorporate that knowledge and that skill and that understanding into your creative process. So if you're incorporating an outdated model, you're basically trying to write movies for the 80s, okay? And if you're trying to write movies for the 80s, sorry, that ship has sailed. The 80s aren't here anymore. So what we want to do instead is I want to sort of present to you what's happening today, the approach to take today. So let's start off with sort of the new screenwriter strategy. Not the new screenwriter, the person who's just beginning, but the new screenwriter strategy, like the new strategy to actually succeed as a screenwriter. Historically, it has always been about getting an agent, getting a manager, going out trying to pitch your projects to the studios and all that sort of thing. There are certain elements of the old way that will continue, will always be there. For example, the process itself is the process itself. That's going to change. We're never not going to start with an idea, turn it into a story, turn that into a screenplay, refine until it's solid, connect with the reader. That will always be the process. That's just how we go from idea to tangible asset. The industry itself there are certain aspects to it. In order to write for production, you have to have literary skill. You have to be able to create stories. You have to be able to build characters. You have to be able to imagine scenes that are both entertaining, that are visual, that are evocative of the meaning and the point and the purpose, and move your story forward effectively. Still got the cough. That's frustrating. So that's not going to change. Those things are never going to change. If you want a job as a professional screenwriter, if you want to develop projects with somebody, you have to be able to demonstrate your skills. And that's what a spec script is and always has been about. It's about creating something so that when someone reads it, they see the movie that you saw in your imagination, and they see on the page the skill you have to be able to turn ideas into movies that they can see from the page that you saw in your head. That skill is what screenwriting is all about. The business approach, trying to go out, get an agent and a manager. Here's the problem. The internet changed everything. There is then and there is now. Before the internet, there was basically gatekeepers. There were basically 10, 20, 100 different studios and production companies that you could submit your work to, and everybody was submitting their work to them, and then the agents popped up and the managers popped up to sort of act as a filter so that the production companies aren't inundated with 10,000 projects. That is still the same. Today, that 10,000 becomes 100,000 because everyone online sees all the free screenwriting resources and realizes I can do this too. And so they go out and they punch something out and then they start submitting it. So if you're on the receiving end of all that, you're inundated with stuff. So more and more and more you have to filter out. You have to say no to the incoming because there's too much incoming. The vast majority of it is simply not viable. So there has to be a new strategy. We have to approach it a different way. Producers, production companies, agents, managers, believe it or not, generally, do not want to read screenplays. Even though we're going to go out of our way to make a beautiful, perfect, delicious screenplay, nobody wants to read it. That's not really what your spec screenplay is for. Your spec screenplay is potentially a movie. Yes, and I know you're passionate about it, so you want to see it turned into a movie. But at the end of the day, in order for a producer, production company, agent, manager, whomever, to get interested in you as a screenwriter, you have to be able to demonstrate that you can do it. How do you break through all that noise? The new strategy is relatively simple. The new strategy is come in as a produced screenwriter. Imagine what's the difference between a complete novice and someone who has credits under their belt. The person who has credits under the belt has films they can show. Look, I wrote this, I wrote this, I wrote this. Someone can go watch those films. They can go, that's a great movie, that's a great movie, that's a great movie. The new screenwriter can't do that. The novice is unable to show and demonstrate that. So the experienced screenwriter will always have the advantage because the experienced screenwriter will be able to show their credits. They'll be able to demonstrate. Excuse me, cough is bugging me. They'll be able to demonstrate their skills. So, as a new screenwriter, the new strategy should be to get your first credits. Now, I can already see the hate. Easier said than done, right, Jeff? Well, no, not necessarily. We live in a completely different era today. We live in the internet era. We live in the era where anyone can pick up a camera, can start talking to the camera or making a film or whatever you're going to do and put it up there on YouTube, put it up there on social media. Put your content out there. You can demonstrate skill. Anyone can go out and demonstrate skill today. So, am I saying that you should just go start writing and making your own short films? Kind of yes, kind of no. What the new strategy really is rather than try to aim for the top, rather than start out aiming for the top, the big Hollywood studios that are making $200 million films, rather than try to compete with literally everyone in the industry for those top jobs, which are going to end up going to people that those people already know, who already have proven skills and track records, rather than compete for that, what you should do as a new screenwriter, or what you should do as a developing screenwriter, even if you're an intermediate that's been struggling for years, take your focus onto the opportunity that's in front of us. The opportunity that's in front of us is we can make movies anywhere today. You can make movies in the barren outback of Australia. You can make movies in an isolated island somewhere in the South Atlantic. You can make movies in big cities, in small cities, anywhere. We have the technology today that can make borderline full professional films for a tiny fraction of the cost of what it used to be, what we used to have to make it for. The problem is, people are going to go out. They're not going to hear this advice. They're going to hear the part of this advice that inspires them, but they're not going to hear the full advice here. They're going to go out. They're going to start making films, and then they're going to start putting it out there. And the problem with that is going to be production driven. The problem with that is that people are going to start making stuff just to put things out there. And then they're not going to have strong stories. They're not going to have strong writing. They're not going to have strong interest in their projects. If you imagine the difference between, here's the opportunity. The opportunity is if you start creating quality material at a low budget There are independent producers or aspiring independent producers or independent producers who have no credits because they want to be independent producers or directors or cinematographers or whomever, but they simply don't have the resources, just like you don't have the resources. If you start making little indie films and you make those little indie films that start to get noticed, what's going to happen is that will open the door. Now, here's the part that everybody's going to miss and ignore, and it's going to come crashing down for you. Once the door opens and you get noticed, that's when you need to have that screenplay that they can actually say yes to. That's when you're going to get your agent. That's when you're going to get your manager. You're going to be able to open the door with an existing project. If it's an indie project, if it's made for very little money, that doesn't matter. If it's good, if the story's good, if it engages the audience intellectually through the story or emotionally with the characters or both, best of both worlds, it's going to attract attention. This is how you're going to break in a world where you can't break in. Forget trying to do email blasts to 1,000 producers. Forget trying to go to the pitch fests and pitch people who... I've been on the receiving end of pitch fests. When people are pitching you one after the other, eyes glaze over. Yes, it's true that a good pitch will get noticed, but what are the odds that that's going to be right in sync with what I'm looking for right this minute? I don't know. Maybe it's a luck of the draw thing. What you have much more control over is going out and making smaller indie films. So, if you think through this strategy, if you think through this approach, what happens is all cynicism fades away. Because if you're holding on to a cynical outlook of screenwriting, it's impossible to break into that industry. You're holding on to an outdated model. You're holding on to a notion that we don't actually still have access. We have access today to anyone. We have access today. Everyone is on social media. And if they're not, then their people are. So everyone is accessible today. I can tell you how to go about accessing people, but if you go about it, you start pushing the old way where they don't know you, they don't know your skills, you've got nothing to show, you've got nothing to prove to them that you can do it, they're going to say no. It's not going to happen. A query letter and a pitch from someone I've never heard of before who has no, credentials or credibility is not... It's not something that I can afford to take the time to review. If I got pitched something by someone whose film just won Sundance, yeah, of course, I'm going to listen to that pitch. See the difference? Now, you might wonder, how do I go about starting this whole thing? Well, if you're not going to join me, which is totally fine, then the goal is then what you want to do is you want to find people in your local community who are interested in making films. If you've been at this for a while, if you've been attempting to screenwrite for many years, and I know a lot of writers who have, so they're very decidedly intermediate level writers. They've written 10 or 12 different projects, but they haven't quite cracked that game. They give up and they quit because the top doors don't open. They won't take a little bit of humility, maybe, I don't know, reality. They won't look at the situation and say, you know what, why don't I aim a little bit lower and go for people who are kind of where I'm at, which is struggling, which is trying, which is sincerely aiming to reach out for that thing, but unable to make it happen. You get a collective of people like that together, you can go out and make films together. You don't need anyone's permission anymore. We have distribution opportunities today. You can distribute a film online. You can distribute a film through iTunes. You can distribute films through Amazon. You can distribute films through probably 10 more streaming services if you watch this video in the couple of years from now. That's the way things are going. Now, you might be a purist and you might say, "But movies should be seen in the cinema. I want my movies to be seen in the cinema." You can do that too. There are very well-known examples, Shane Carruthers and people like that, who have four-walled their projects. You say, well, I don't want that. I want a big studio to release my film. That's an ego thing. And you can get to that. Absolutely can get to that. But you need to be able to prove yourself to get to that. Now, you might say, well, some people who have written for those things have come from out of nowhere. Yes, they have. Some people have won the lottery too. So are you going to bank on that, or are you going to actually take a new strategy? Are you actually going to look at a new way to make this actually happen? The way to make this happen is to stop kidding yourself that you're the only one trying to do this. You are the only one that has your own unique voice and vision and perspective. And that is something no one can or will ever take away from you. That is the thing you have to share. That is what you should be passionate about and should be driving this. It shouldn't be to try to get in through that door, to become Steven Spielberg's writing partner or whoever your fill in the blank. I'm from the 80s, so Steven Spielberg's my go-to. If that's your target, you have to understand there are tens or hundreds of thousands of people who want that as well. Even if you're the best of the best, getting seen, getting noticed in that arena is a very challenging thing. Let's not leave it to chance. Let's turn it into an actual strategy. So today's daily prompt is relatively simple. Today's daily prompt is to take a look at what you've done so far. If you're going if you're going step by step through this thing, I don't want to say step by step. If you're going day by day through the daily prompt and you start building a little bit here, or if you're working on a project that you've been working on for any length of time, I want you to look at that project. I want you to look at what you're doing, what you're building, and think of it through the filter of this new strategy. Really think about what I'm talking about here today. Really process this. When you're finished with this video, remember, at the end of each of these, don't just go on to something else. Stop. Go quiet. Turn everything off for a minute. After you comment. Turn everything off for a minute. Think about it. Process it. Decide whether you agree or disagree with it. Filter it through your own vantage point. And then actually take some action toward it. 10 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, 10 hours, whatever you can afford. Make sense? So tomorrow what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how this particular perspective and insight and approach is shaping what I'm setting out to do. I think there's some lack of clarity about what this is, what this whole thing's about, what I'm about, what I'm trying to achieve. And so tomorrow I want to show you my roadmap strategy to what I'm trying to build. That will involve you if you want, not involve you if you don't want, but you can watch over my shoulder and see what I'm doing. Go off and do it on your own. That's fine too. But the world is, it's so cliche, your oyster. There's unlimited opportunity today. If you have creative things to say, there are an exploding array of varying nuances and opportunities in which you can say them. So we'll talk more about it as we go along, but specifically tomorrow I want to get into my specific strategy with it. Today, before we get there, I want you to stop and think about your specific strategy for it. Thanks for watching. See you then.